All right, those just connecting, make sure and go ahead and if you want to comment during the podcast, you can just sign into YouTube. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. Make sure and go to week 3 check in to check in, and we'll get started here in about 5 minutes. All right, those just connecting, make sure and go to the week 3 module check-in and check in. If you do want to make a comment or post on the streaming YouTube, you can do that by logging in. You don't have to, though. Just make sure you can view my screen. That's the only thing you want to make sure you can do. Looks like we got a few connect. We're going to wait a couple more minutes before we get started officially. I have 7:30, so I'll wait till about 7:32, and we'll get started. Guess we're supposed to get some very cold weather the next couple days, breaking some records, so make sure and stay warm. If you have kids, definitely have precautions for kids, bundle them up, make sure they're got the gloves and the hats and stuff on. And I don't believe I talked to someone today. I believe Wednesday for sure all the schools will probably cancel, including Rock Valley, if we get the cold snap we're supposed to get. So if you do have classes on Wednesday, more than likely the entire campus will be closed. This week we're going to be covering conditions. We're going to go over a few slides, some examples in Replit. We'll do a demos in Replit, and then go over one of the assignments this week is creating your final app idea. You'll create a GitHub account, a GitHub web page. I've already created some podcasts to help you with that. And so even though it's only week 3, now it's better to start early on that than later. We do have a Kahoot this week, but it's going to be a challenge Kahoot, meaning you'll just basically fire up the Kahoot app, put it in a pin, and take the challenge. I think it's 6 questions on this week's chapter 8, I believe it is. All right, I've got 7:32. I'm going to go and get started. Those of you that join in later, you can watch this podcast in full. And so thanks to those that have connected. We'll go and get started. All right. So we're in week 3, and we are in conditions next week, parameters. It's online next week. Podcast will be posted by 7:30. I've got the first hour of code for the semester. Following week is preprocessors. Week 6, bitwise and logical, online on that week. Week 7, structures and beginning pointers. Week 8, classes. Week 9, more classes. Week 10, pointers. Week 11, read and write to file. Week 12, having fun updating dice game. That's online. And in week 13, you start working on your final app. Optional attendance. I will be here if you need it or online. And then also work on your final app in week 14. Optional attendance on that one. In week 15, attendance mandatory. And we'll go over your app checklist. You'll do your final presentation on 5/6. Those just joining, make sure you go to the week 3 module. And in week 3 module, there's a check-in. In the check-in is where you're going to submit your name. Hopefully I opened up for text entry. It looks like some folks have already checked in. Great. The Kahoot for week 3. That is a challenge Kahoot, meaning we're not going to do it live. One of the reasons I'm not doing it live on a streaming class is there is a little lag from what I'm saying and what you're seeing. So when we do a live Kahoot, it's like I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds. I can't remember. So anyway, if you fire up the steps here, download the iOS or Android app, put in the pin, accept the challenge, take it, And then I think there's 6 questions going over Chapter 8, Practical C++. Also, those just joining in the YouTube app that you're watching this in, if you do sign in, I believe you have the opportunity to post a question. Because of the delay, I might see it or might not see it, but I'll try to answer it during the live session. You can only post live chat questions during the chat session. You do have to be logged into YouTube to see it, though. You're not required to do that, just an option if you want to. Solo learn this week, you're going to be doing types, arrays, and pointers in solo learn. Once you're finished, as always, make sure all the check boxes are checked. Once you finish the questions per module, do a screenshot and then upload that screenshot to this assignment. Reading this week is Modern C++ is Chapter 7 through 9. And Chapter 7 through 9 in Modern C++, read that if you haven't already done so. It's going to give you a pretty good overview of the scope, life, and common errors and regarding scope and life. And then Practical 8 is the PDF download. PDF download for Chapter 8 is on for loops and things like that we're going to be going over tonight, while loops. So do the reading on that. So let's go over the slides first. First slide in chapter through 1 through 4 in the chapter. 1 through 4 on the chapters, 1 through 4 on basic declarations. I want to stick with probably Chapter 4 on expressions. These go over some of the terms with expressions as far as making sure understanding variable declarations, just summing up on that. How a variable is a name. Variable declaration defines 3 purposes: the name of the variable, the type of the variable, and a description of some type above the variable when you declare them. And I'll download this one here because I actually want to see this slide here, not the 3 I have up here. So let me get rid of those. I'll maybe this one. There we go. That's better. So Chapter 8 is the one I really want to go over, which is on more controls and statements. 17 slides here, nothing real long. So first thing is a for statement. When you're doing a for loop in C++ or any language, it starts with the name for. Lowercase. If you do uppercase, it will not correct, it will not run. Then the argument is your initial statement, usually declaration of an integer, a condition while that loop does something with that integer, say while it's less than 10, less than 20. And then finally, the statement of iteration. Is it going to decrement or is it going to increment per loop? And the actual body statement of what you're going to do with that loop while the code's running. It's equivalent to initial statement and just a basic while loop. While condition is true, some statement, some iteration, increment, where you're incrementing a counter or something. So an example here, declaring an integer called count. Count is declared as a 0 initially, initialize as 0. While count is less than 5, it's going to increment. It should be while, not white. It's going to increment that count, and it's going to see out the total. Another example on a for loop, for count is equal to 0, while count is less than 5, it's going to increment and then kick out the total. And anytime you see in the examples, the standard, this is going to be taken out of your code because you are using the standard import. All right, so let's keep going on the switch statement. Switch statement is using the word switch with multiple cases and usually a default and sometimes a break. So basically, it could be a case would be like, say, for instance, there's a grading app that if it fell in the grade levels or say the 10-point grading scale. So if the points of an assignment was 90 or above, maybe a case would be A, then B, and we'll keep on going like D and maybe A, B, C, D, and then the default will be if none of those above catched, the default would be, in this case, F. And break statement is going to be used inside of a default or inside of a case to stop the switch statement. Or to exit the switch statement. So in a case, you have a couple terms, a couple words, the word switch, then case, and then whatever the constant value is. In case I just gave an example of grades, the argument or statement, and then break, which is exiting out of that switch. Default, generally most cases will have a default. If there's nothing that's caught, it goes to the default. So here we have a switch example looking for an operator, additional, subtraction, divisional type of program. And notice that if it catches a plus, it's going to sum a value and put it in result. Negative, it's going to subtract a value, put it in result. Times is going to multiply the value, put it in result. Division, the value is 0, equal to 0. You kick out, divide by 0, operation ignored, else. Divisional statement of put in result. And notice each one of these cases have an exit break. And then if none of those were selected or brought in, it would be an unknown operator. So to end a break, as already been mentioned, it says a break is not required at the end of a break statement is not required at the end of a case switch. Like so, you'll notice, there is one in here, but there's not one in 0. There's not one in 2. So basically, and this would here, a better example would be the, besides a, if there's no calculations in a case, it's always a good idea to have a break statement in there. Otherwise, if it's a loop that's constantly looping, you do not have to have that. Recommended, you'll see most C++ programs have a break statement, though, in every one of the cases, which is not a bad way to do it. Okay? So now we're going to look at some examples. In the next section here, got 4 examples, 4 loops, a while loop, 2 for loops, and 2 while loops, basically. This first one is this one here. And in here, it's a for loop execution. And if you were to click on that and run it, you can change it and replicate to whatever. And I'm going to go ahead and run it as it is. So it starts out with an integer value set of a variable set to 20. While a is greater than 0, is going to increment. The first loop, a is going to be 20. Second loop is going to be 19. The last loop, the a should be 1. And you'll see it show up here in the values. So first loop 20, second loop 19, 18, 17, 16, all the way down. When it gets to the value of 1 and it decrements it, it's going to take that 1 to 0 here, comes back to the 4, Now A is going to be 0, so it's going to stop and do a return statement. So if I was to change this 20 to 1, which I have to do here, and run it, and you can change it to whatever when you're playing with it. And it'll show accordingly. I'm only going to get one kick out because we only have one loop. Next example is a loop statement. This is while x is less than 10, x is going to decrease for every loop. So for int x equals to 10, here's a declaration of initialization of the variable x. While x is greater than 0, x is going to be decremented. So keep in mind that the loop condition checks the conditional statement before it loops again. Consequently, when x equals 10, the loop breaks. X is actually, in this case here, x greater than 0 is going to break. X is updated before the condition is checked. So in the first loop here, if I run this real quick, I'm going to start at 10 and go to 1. All right. And first loop, x is 10. Last loop, that's allowed to run anyway, x is 1. When the value of x is 1, it comes back to the 4. And it's going to now, before this is ran in here, it's going to do a pre-check and realize, guess what? X is no longer greater than 0. It is actually 0 in this case, so it's not going to run. That's where it's going to stop at 1. All right. The other one here you'll notice is the cin.get. Cin.get is going to be used a lot of times for eating the value of the input. The next example here is a do while. And this one here for do while is used a lot for, say, it's a menu app where you constantly ask the user, do you want to run this over and over again, like for a dice game or for entering grades, whatever the case may be. And so here you declare, different than the for loop, which is declared inside of the for statement, it's declared outside. So here's our variable declaration, and x is equal to 0. And then it's going to kick out the word hello world while x is not equal to 10. Once it equals to 10, it's going to stop. And so in here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then a loop statement here, since we start with 0, it's going to go to 9, which is going to kick out 10. On the 10th one, which is going to be this line here, on this last line here, 9 plus 1 is 10. Then it's going to stop here. It's not going to go back to the do statement and kick this out. And again, stopping this, we're going to eat the input statement. Finally, this example here is a do while, or a do while something is less than something else. So in this case, we initialize I as 0. In the do statement, we're going to run and kick out hello world while I is less than 3. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2. When it gets to the third one, it's going to see it's not available. Actually, it's going to increment it before it gets that. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2, and then it's going to stop. Because it's going to see I is less than 3. I is going to be greater than 3 in that case. So in this case here, I in the first loop is going to become 1, then 2, actually 0, then 1, then 2, then finally it's going to increment and stay on this expression here and stop, because I is then going to be not less than 3. So it's actually going to be 3 in the stop. So if I was to change this to say 4 and run it, you're going to get 4. But again, starting at 0 goes, because of that 0, I is incremented at 0. We'll have to change that to 1 to go back to 3, because I is incremented at 1, 2, 3, and it's going to do a pre-test and not going to kick out and allow I to go to the next one because it's going to be higher than that. Because again, first loop, I is 1. It's going to be incremented to that, and 3, then 4, then finally on the fourth one, it's going to stop. There's a podcast we're doing. For your assignment, it's assignment 3, which I'll go ahead and pull up here. Go to my Replit account to pull it up. Use it that way. And we're looking at CIS277, project 3. Not yet graded all of projects 2s yet, so bear with me. So in this example here, objective is completing the code to allow input of 10 grades of A, B, C, D, F, and catch other than that. So output example, please enter grade for A, B, C, D, or F. A, good work. X is not a legal grade. Please enter X. Please enter correct grade, A, B, C, D, or F. C, passing work, so on and so forth. They get an F, and you'll notice each one of these, D and F gets a different message. Each one of them gets a different message. On D and F, it's unsatisfactory work, so your instructor. A, B, C. A is good, great work. B, I don't believe I show here as an example. But what I want you to do basically is just show a different, it's showing a different kick out for each one. You can change these, by the way, for extra work, or extra credit type stuff, just to be different. You'll also be adding the B case, which is not in here. It does not have to be good work. If you don't want it to be, it can be something else. You'll also have to add in the default that prints out for the not legal grade. You'll also have to take care of that to make sure that works. And the example I give you for help is a C loop one. This program here is going to help you with the loop and the case select default. And so it goes over, read the instructions, read the definitions and comments I put in here. And then it goes over a number of different types of conditional statements, including the one that you'll be doing this week. And so take advantage of that while you're playing with it. The other one, I believe that we looked at tonight, on the switch statement here, gives you a good example as well. And then always at the end, in the module, I usually have an example for you. So if you go down to the bottom module where it says code, week 3 is where you'd want to go to see the solution example. And so going back to the assignment for week 3, I have added this semester just a little bit extra for you, which is if you want to do extra credit, like adding other functions, validation, messages, whatever, just if you do that, which some of you have already done the first 2 weeks, just post in the message below along with your Replit link, your comments on what you did with that Replit, that would be awesome. Okay. And you don't have to do the Replit link, I'm sorry, because it's going to be graded in the classroom assignment, lesson 3. But do put in the comment any extra that you did. That way you'll get the extra points for that. Okay. Going on. Final app idea. You're going to create a GitHub account. You can use your personal email or your student email. For my programming classes, I always have them use their student email, but really I've been changing that the last couple semesters because students do use their Gmail or their GitHub after they leave here. There's really no reasoning to use your student email. So use a free Gmail account or one of you, many of you already have one already. And I'm going to close some of these here so I can open the new tabs. So if you click on this here link, it's going to send you to a page to where you can join GitHub. You're going to enter in your information. You're going to enter in your email, name, and join GitHub. You'll enter in your what username you'd like. If it's not available, it'll tell you. They've just updated GitHub, which is really nice. You not only get unlimited private repos, you get unlimited public repos, which you've done already, but unlimited private repos. What that means is you can be creating a code for an application on a private repo that nobody sees to save and secure your code. And the whole purpose behind GitHub is basically just that. It's a source control repository for developers to publish their code and sync it with all their other devices where it can be accessed from anywhere. And God forbid, if your computer was to crash, you'll have all your code backed up here to GitHub and easily accessible. All languages supported in GitHub. And as you can see this week, you can also even create GitHub for a website, which is easy to do. So create your account. Once you've created your GitHub account, then you will create a GitHub web page. There's a video I've created here. In the web page, you'll be required to put the app name, app description of your website or of your app, and Watch the Blow podcast walks you through how to do that. It's not a real long podcast. This podcast already assumes that you have a GitHub account created. It shows you how to create a repository, and from that repository, create a web page. You don't really have to have any web language knowledge. It has built-in tools, I'll forward fast, in GitHub to help you create a web page, a final web page. So it's a 4-minute and 49-second video that helps you with that. Once you're finished with it, you'll basically have in there the name of your app, description of your app, and that's it. You'll submit below your app name, app description, and target audience. I'll put an article in here and also the GitHub URL of your GitHub webpage. And let me just show you real quick, and I'll show you in the video, but let me log into GitHub myself. Show you that you get a unique URL for your web page when you create one in GitHub. All right, so I'll give an example here of one I created. Let's do, let's see. Photo or something like that. I can't remember. It's in my iOS directory. We'll find it. Pull drop photo. So here is a example of a web page created in GitHub. And so you'll notice it puts on here title, app requirements, and this one here is an app to allow you to take a photo, caption it, and save it to your Dropbox account. PDF file created that has a photo along with the caption and link to the GPS coordinates on a Google map. And then a view file button that has been added to the download PDF and images from Dropbox. The photos and PDFs can be found in the Dropbox folder called Secure Photo Drop. And this is actually on the App Store right now. It was tested years ago. But anyway, this is an example of a web page created in GitHub easily. And it does give you a nice, unique URL that you can use. And so when you watch the podcast, they'll show you how to do it. But I want to just show you lastly here. When you create the GitHub web page, it'll give you a nice site here that's published that you can use to share with other people, and they can start looking at your app and testing it and stuff like that later on down the road. But make sure and read this article. This article is a good article on what the importance of a target audience. Many of you have not thought of that before, maybe. And this is not a real detailed article. It just talks about why it's important before you even create an app to think of a couple things. One is the app description. I like what it says at the front of this article. These folks analyzed hundreds of stories on failing startups and concluded that 14% of them hadn't examined their client. There is a pain point for those who develop and market apps. They're often guilty of developing and designing a product without an end user in mind. So you've got to picture a profile of a person or persons that would use your app, why they would use your app before you ever start creating the app. It'd be kind of like building a house without an idea of a family living in it. It probably wouldn't be too successful. Maybe at the end of the time of the building of the house, you'd have no bedrooms and just a kitchen maybe. I don't know. But many app developers develop that way where they're blinded on purpose sometimes or just not knowing of the end result client. So have a great idea for an app isn't enough. An app should provide real value for a specific group of people. Your app might be a simple calculator to manage groceries. Might be a simple app that keeps track of list of some type, whatever list it might be. It could be an app that finds a temperature, converting temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius, Celsius to Fahrenheit. And whatever the app is, function is irrelevant if you don't have a purpose for that function. And so providing a real value, and I guess that's a key term for specific people. And so when you're going to create an app this semester, this week, think about the target audience. And the target audience, a real quick way to figure it out is when you plan and figure out target audience for an app, you can plan functionality and design around that audience. Best monetization if you're going to make money from an app in the future, and precise marketing. So defining an audience, it talks about different ways to do that. And again, it goes into more detail on what you need for this week, but it's going to be a good article to help you find that type of audience for your app. And again, you're limited in scope for this app because it's in C++. It's not a GUI-based app, so it's going to be more than likely a utility app of some type. You can create gaming apps, like there is a dice game that was created last semester. There was a word game where it was a story game basically where it would prompt the user with a choice, and each choice led to a different scenario in the story. And so there, it was definitely, but it's targeted to kids, and creating logic and critical thinking on stories. There was a math app for grade schoolers to learn math. So a whole bunch of different uses that you can use, and you can create in C++. We'll be thinking of that as well. All right, so that's that one. Again, you'll submit in this one the app name, app description, target audience, and the URL to your GitHub webpage. Make sure and watch the podcast after you've created your free GitHub account. The podcast is going to show you how to create a web page for your app. And again, in the app, all I need is at the top of the GitHub webpage, the app name, a short description. It is a working app name and a working description title, I understand. So if you change it down the road, no big deal. Target audience, a little blurb about that. Say your target audience is grade school kids, K through 12. Say the app name is called, I don't know Your Math. App description. App description is this app will help K through 12 or K through 5 students learn mathematics, multiplication, subtraction, addition, and divisional statements. And then the app target audience, K through 5 students, and then submit the link to the GitHub. Review questions from Chapter 8, Practical C++. And what type of app functions use the switch statements is the discussion question. So that is week 3. Those of you that are connected, let me see if I can find a question anybody had. Somebody says, is it possible to change the whole app idea later after submitting an assignment? Definitely it is. Good question. So this is a working title, a working app title, a working app description. But if you submit whatever idea you have this week, that's great. If it does change, which many times it will, that's fine by me. As long as you're getting down the understanding this week of how to create a GitHub repo, how to create a GitHub web page, you know how to do that. You'll know what a target audience is this week. That way down the road, you want to change it, you can. So, Ahmad, that's a good question. Any other questions before we are done? You can post them in the chat. Otherwise, thanks for connecting, those of you connected. He said, would you be able to answer question 9 from the review questions on week 2? Yes, I will answer question 9 from the review questions this week whenever I do the grading. Thanks for mentioning that. In fact, I will be posting has not been revealed yet on Eagle, but Ahmad, you will have all the review question answers posted 1 week after the due date, once everybody's turned everything in. So that should help, hopefully. Will that be okay to wait till then? That would be awesome. I'll just do that. And it'll probably be, I'll put it down here at the module level. I will put it the very bottom where it says solutions. I will put another section in here for review questions that'll be posted. The answers will be posted there. So hopefully, does that answer your question, Ahmad, if I do that? Great. All right, cool. So that is week 3. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Keep your eyes on the news for school on Wednesday. Campus more than likely will be going tomorrow. I don't see why not. And so thanks for connecting, and let's have a great week. If you have any questions, as always, shoot me an email. Text me here at the number at the top of the course. But let's have a great week, and I will see everybody in a couple weeks. All right, bye-bye.